Imagine being the person who almost talked Clint Eastwood out of making Unforgiven. Imagine being the one who nearly erased one of the greatest westerns ever because you thought the script was trash. Unforgiven won Best Picture at the Oscars and became the perfect swan song for Eastwood's cowboy persona. But it came dangerously close to never existing. Not because of studio interference, not because of budget problems, because one woman read the script and decided it was garbage. Her name was Sonia Chernus. She was one of Eastwood's closest collaborators, someone whose opinion he actually respected. And when she read David Webb Peoples' script, she hated it. We're not talking about mild disapproval here. She despised it. She straight up told Eastwood to get rid of it fast. Inferior work, she called it. Trash. And Eastwood actually listened. At first. The script sat unread, just gathering dust in a drawer. Now let's rewind a bit. This story really starts with David Webb Peoples, the guy who wrote Unforgiven. He wasn't a big-name screenwriter at the time. He was just another guy trying to make it, working as a film editor while writing spec scripts on the side. And in 1976, he wrote this brutal little western called The William Money Killings, later retitled The Cut Whore Killings. Yeah, not exactly the kind of title studios were rushing to greenlight. Then Francis Ford Coppola got involved. He had just come off The Godfather, The Conversation, and Apocalypse Now, but the 80s weren't as kind to him. He needed a win and thought Unforgiven had potential, but he couldn't get it made. His option ran out, and in 1985, Clint Eastwood picked it up. That's when Chernus got involved. She was Eastwood's longtime associate, someone who had worked with him for years. She read the script and hated everything about it, even wrote an entire memo just ripping it apart. She thought it was beneath Eastwood, that it was an embarrassment, something he shouldn't even consider making. She told him to throw it away. And here's the insane part. Eastwood actually took her advice. He didn't even read it. He just set it aside. Years passed before someone else told him, hey, maybe actually give it a shot. David Peoples is good. So Eastwood finally picked it up, sat down, and read it. And he fell in love. Not since The Outlaw Josie Wales in 1976 had I come across a Western script that I felt was its equivalent, he said. But here's where Clint Eastwood shows why he's Clint Eastwood. He also knew he wasn't ready to actually make it. This was 1981. He was in his early 50s, still playing younger, more heroic roles. He knew Unforgiven needed an older, world-weary version of himself, so he made a decision. Put it in the drawer, wait. And that's exactly what he did. For nearly a decade, that script just sat there, waiting for the right time. Then in 1990, he looked at himself in the mirror and realized now was the time. He dusted off the script, read it again, and knew he was finally ready to play William Money. Filming kicked off in 1991 in Alberta, Canada. They even built the entire town of Big Whiskey from scratch. No modern vehicles were allowed on set to keep the authenticity intact. And Unforgiven became one of the greatest westerns of all time, won 4 Oscars and raked in over $159 million at the box office against $14.4 million budget. All from a script that Clint Eastwood almost never read because one woman told him not to. Now, to be fair, Sonia Chernus wasn't some random nobody. She had worked with Eastwood for years and her instincts weren't always wrong. But this was a bad call. Good thing Eastwood ignored her. Eventually.